Welcome to The Explainer. Have you ever stared at a super dense, multisyllabic corporate document and just felt totally overwhelmed? Well, you are definitely not alone. Today, we're diving into what we like to call linguistic math. We're basically going to treat language like an equation so you can completely conquer professional linguistic anxiety. We'll learn exactly how to break down those massive, intimidating terms using a very specific, repeatable framework.
Here's our agenda for today's hands-on tutorial. We'll be covering decoding workplace linguistic anxiety, roots as the constants of language, the affixation modifying engine, linguistic optimization in business, advanced evolution and borrowing, and we'll wrap things up with an interactive decoding practice session.
Section 1. Decoding Workplace Linguistic Anxiety. So let's dive right in and just normalize that feeling of hitting a total brick wall when you see these massive, complex terms in high-stakes environments. Because let's be real, we've all been there, right? You're in an important meeting, or maybe skimming an urgent brief, and boom, a word pops up that completely derails your train of thought.
That exact feeling actually has a name. It's called linguistic anxiety. But here's the secret. Instead of freezing up or frantically reaching for a dictionary, elite communicators use a specific framework to reverse engineer these terms right on the fly. They aren't just passively reading words, they're actually solving them, piece by piece, kind of like an algebra problem.
Section 2. Roots, the constants of language. Now, to decode effectively, every equation needs a constant, right? And in English, that constant is the root word. Think of the root as the unbreakable DNA of a word's meaning. It's the super stable foundation that stays totally steady no matter how complicated the rest of the word ends up getting.
Watch how we literally solve for x in this step-by-step example. We start with our constant, the root word act, which simply means to do. Then we add our prefix, re, which means again. Finally, we tack on our suffix, ion, which physically shifts our action into a noun. You put all of that together, and we've mathematically built the word reaction. By identifying that root first, you can instantly grasp the core intent of the message. This architectural map is a fantastic study aid because it beautifully illustrates the entire tree of word formation. It perfectly shows how these linguistic equations branch out from just one single root word foundation. From there, they're modified by different parts to create an entire living vocabulary ecosystem. It's actually really cool to see.
Section 3. The affixation modifying engine. Let's see exactly how our roots plug into this modifying engine to expand our constants. Once you've got your root down, affixation is basically the engine that either alters the word's internal value or completely shifts its grammatical category. So, the really crucial takeaway here is that prefixes and suffixes have entirely different jobs. A prefix changes the value, kind of like a negative sign in math. Think about it. If you add un to happy, it's still an adjective, right? It just has the exact opposite value now. Suffixes, on the other hand, actually shift the word's entire grammatical category, like taking a verb and magically turning it into a noun. You might actually want to grab a screenshot of this summary table. Seriously, consider this your go-to cheat sheet for identifying common meaning modifiers and category shifters at work. For instance, just recognizing that the suffix "-ize" upgrades a static adjective into an actionable verb, like taking modern and making it modernize, is a massive advantage when you're trying to write really punchy executive briefs.
Section 4. Linguistic optimization in business. Now, building words up isn't the only way language works. Out there in the business world, English often functions like a lazy programmer. It prioritizes speed, convenience, and cognitive efficiency above absolutely everything else. So we don't just add pieces, we constantly subtract and combine them too.
Take a look at the clunky, technical phrasing here versus the highly optimized version. Notice how we shift the noun email straight into an action verb? That's a process called conversion. Then we literally clip the words laboratory examination down to just lab exam. By doing this, we're transforming a super passive, wordy sentence into sharp, action-oriented communication.
These optimization shortcuts really serve our fundamental human need for rapid information exchange. Clipping is basically linguistic subtraction, lopping off syllables. Blending is hybrid addition, where you merge two concepts together. I mean, who doesn't love taking breakfast and lunch and making brunch? And then there's compounding, which is strategic joining. It's locking two words together for immediate descriptive clarity, like workforce.
Section 5. Advanced evolution and borrowing. So, beyond just shortening things, language actually evolves backwards sometimes.
It also reaches across global borders to find the absolute perfect communication solutions for basically any scenario. It really is a living, breathing system.
For instance, let's look at a really fascinating process called back formation. It acts almost like linguistic sculpture. We usually think of language as adding suffixes to verbs to make nouns, right? But here, we actually physically carve supposed affixes away from existing nouns to reveal these concise active verbs underneath. We take editor and carve out edit. We take donation and literally sculpt the verb donate. It's a brilliant trick that prioritizes the strategic act over the static object.
English also uses what we might call global math. It actively borrows precise terms from other languages to fill conceptual gaps in our professional and daily vocabulary. Take a moment to check out where everyday words like bungalow or safari actually come from. This incredible openness to integration is exactly what makes English such a highly adaptable international system.
Section 6, Interactive Decoding Practice Session. Okay, you've learned the formulas. Now it's time to actually put those linguistic math skills to the test in our hands-on decoding lab. I want you to actively apply what we've just covered together.
Go ahead and pause the explainer right here for a second. Take a look at these two terms. I want you to solve these linguistic equations and see if you can identify the specific word formation processes used to create them.
All right, let's see how you did. First up, UNICEF. This is a condensed identifier known as an acronym. And remember, that's distinctly different from an initialism because we actually pronounce it as one single word. Meanwhile, brunch is a great example of hybrid addition, otherwise known as blending.
Let's try two more. Pause the explainer again and test out your advanced decoding skills. Can you figure out what processes created the word donate and the verb form of email?
And here are the solutions. Donate is a back formation. It's been physically sculpted backward from the noun donation. And email? Well, when you use it as an action, it's a conversion. That's a super efficient functional shift going from a noun straight into a verb without changing a single letter. So, as you head out into the corporate world armed with these new linguistic formulas, remember, you're no longer just a passive reader. You are an active decoder. I'll leave you with this to consider. If language is a mathematical equation continuously evolving to prioritize speed and efficiency, what new terminology will you reverse engineer, or maybe even invent, next? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep decoding.